Welcome back to Green is Good. We're so honored to have with us today Dr. Lisa Bardwell. She's the president and CEO of Earth Force. Welcome to Green is Good, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, we're so happy to have you on today and share all the great work you are doing at Earth Force. But before we get there, you have a fascinating journey to share with us leading up to becoming the president and CEO of Earth Force. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about your story and journey leading up to Earth Force and how you even got here?
Sure. I'm a recovering academic, and when I was My dissertation actually was really focused on being so concerned that the way we think and present environmental issues in the classroom and in our communities is often so big and overwhelming that people kind of throw up their hands and say, I'm going to live for today. I don't think I can figure out a way to help make a difference. And so my dissertation actually looked at how do you present issues and help people think about them and work on them in a way that is exciting, reinforcing, and optimistic. Well, I was introduced to Earth Force at the very beginning in 1997 when they were developing local sites. And lo and behold, the educational strategy that Earth Force uses engages young people in approaching environmental issues in the way that my dissertation told me ought to work and be effective. And for the last 17 years, I can tell you that process that we help young people use to work together on environmental issues works. It validates the research and the kind of geeky stuff I did in a real-world context, and I couldn't be more excited at getting to bridge that and to really try and help address issues in communities that I care a lot about issues I care a lot about, and getting to work with young people who I really care deeply about.
That is just so wonderful. So can you share, when did you join Earth Force, Lisa?
It was started in 1994 by Pew Charitable Trust. Okay. I joined it in 1997.
1997. So you've been there running the organization for now 17 years.
I've been, it's a little more complicated. At the time, I helped start a local site in Denver. And then in 2008, maybe, I was asked to run the national organization. So it had local offices and a national entity, and I worked at the local site and built that up in Denver, Colorado for the first about 10 years.
Gotcha. And for our listeners out there that would like to follow along and learn more about Earth Force, please go to earthforce.org, earthforce.org. Share with our listeners, please, the mission and what actually is going on at your great organization, Earth Force, Lisa.
So I think the big vision of Earth Force is that we have a nation where young people are really actively involved. They're sitting at the table in helping make decisions and positive change in their environment and their communities and schools. So our mission is that we engage young people as active citizens who improve the environment and their communities now and in the future. And the thing that I think I am really excited and pleased about the work we do is that we recognize that you can't just throw a program at an educator or a community partner or a group of young people and think that they can accomplish that our other commitment is to really working at a community level and bringing together those entities, be they businesses, faith-based, schools, other nonprofits, so the grown-ups, to be honest, to get their act together to really create a shared platform for young people to step into leadership roles to affect change in their communities.
That's so interesting.
We're convinced we don't have to wait until you're 18 to be a change agent and to bring marvelous energy and creativity and commitment to addressing some of the issues that we face.
That is so great. And so what does Earth Force mean? You know, everyone has different definitions of environment, of sustainability. How does Earth Force define environment, and how does health figure into that entire holistic definition?
Sure. So we've kind of adopted the environmental justice definition of environment, which is really very place-based. So it's the place where we work, play, learn. Some people add pray. So it really grounds our work in young people looking at what is around them And when you do that, especially if you're working in urban settings, that's going to include clean air, clean water, the ability to recreate, to be able to have safe places to walk. So clean indoor air. So at that point, you begin to really think about not only the environment as that kind of natural animals, trees. You really begin to think about how does that affect humans and the life and the quality of life that we have in our communities. And I have to credit young people for really pushing that in our growth and our understanding about how we do this work. Because their process that we support and train adults to facilitate with young people starts with a community inventory and young people looking at what are some of the strengths and what are some of the challenges in their communities. And inevitably, they come back with those kinds of issues that really touch very directly on human health.
So explain what you mean in terms of, it's project-based and how you engage youths into projects to, create platforms that give them opportunities to become young leaders.
Mm-hmm. So our process is really focused on kind of the notion of we have a very deep commitment to being a democratic nation and really helping build those civic skills.
Right.
So the process is really, it's 6 steps, and we train and support formal and informal educators and partners in really supporting this. It's a group of young people who work together to go from identifying an issue in their community that they care about. That's so critical. They've got to be passionate about it. And helping them figure out how to really look at the political and social landscape in their communities to figure out who do we need to work with to address this issue, what's been done before, what are some resources and kind of strategies that we could use to actually affect change for the long term. And so they do this in a school context. You can integrate so many of the disciplines into how the young people actually go through this process and do this work. You've heard me mention research skills.
Yes.
They have to work together.
Right.
They actually have to make decisions together.
Wow.
But it's around an issue that they care about, which is so critical. And then it's also really, really important that they get to actually implementing that project, and that because we use a process that we call criteria-based decision-making, they really have brought criteria to bear on their decisions. So ideally, they've done a project that they can accomplish in the time frame they're given, with the resources they're given, and that they do a reflection at the end that says, wow, what did we accomplish? What else needs to be done? And how do we share and celebrate the work we've done? I think an example might be more useful, too.
Sure.
Or helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick one that I think is near and dear to maybe Electronic Recyclers International.
Okay.
We had a group of young people, so I said they start with an inventory. And many, many of our programs start with young people looking at a watershed or in terms of a local river or a local lake. And they often go out and they do water quality monitoring, and they do an assessment of just the health of that body of water. Well, these young people were doing that inventory and noticed that their local creek had become a dumping ground. And when they did kind of an inventory of some of the trash that they collected, they realized that a lot of it was, there were electronics. So folks were throwing, their computer screens or whatever they couldn't dispose of. They had to pay or whatever. So their project was to actually work with their local community to set up an electronic recycling program. Wow. So that, in their mind, they're solving the issue of addressing dumping in their local waterways by creating a community alternative that had people bringing their electronics to a more appropriate disposal strategy.
That is great.
We've had another one. We had some young people who were looking at drinking water in their community. And because this is such a balanced process, we really force them or encourage them to look at the full picture. We had young people who were worried they discovered that there was lead in the drinking pipes in a lot of their homes. This was an older neighborhood, and quite low income. And, of course, the first thing young people would think is, oh, my gosh, we have to sue. We have to sue the water company. But you do your balanced research. You really think about how do these systems work.
Right.
And they learned, of course, that old homes had lead solder in the drinking pipes.
Right.
And that in many of these homes, the owners were not going to be able to afford replumbing their homes. So these young people decided they were going to target a most vulnerable population, which is pregnant women and young people under 6. And they raised $5,000 to distribute water filters to 100 of those homes. And, of course, the concomitant, this is why we're doing it and this is why it's important. That process for those young people, it's one of my near and dear stories. It turned a group of young people that the 7th grade, in their school, they were 7th graders. Much of the school had given up on them because they were such a disruptive, challenging class. And doing this process and realizing that they had a critical role in helping others and in changing their communities, I literally, with the results for these young people, person by person, is astonishing in terms of how it changed their perspective on their academic performance and why they're in school, on how they work together, and on their really almost their right and responsibility to step up in their communities.
I love it. Those are two great stories. If you've just joined us, we've got Dr. Lisa Bardwell with us. She's the president and CEO of Earth Force. You could check out all their great work. You could also donate and support all their great work at www.earthforce.org. Lisa, there's two critical points that I want you to discuss and share and basically define for our listeners out there that I've read about you in how you frame the issue and also frame the solution. You talked a little bit about when these students were, in your previous stories, looking at the full picture. Well, you have really taken a holistic view of the environment. I want you to share what you mean by holistic view with regards to the stories you were just sharing. But more important, I've seen a term that you've put together called uncommon collaboratives. And I'd love you to unpack that for our listeners and explain how uncommon collaboratives can be one of the keys to solution making with regards to sustainability and our environment for the months and years ahead.
Yep. So when we talk about uncommon collaborative, we really are bringing to the table how critical it is that all of us, and that includes businesses, schools, parents, faith-based communities, so I'm talking at the adult level, that we really get our act together and figure out how to share an agenda and a vision for working together. And so the uncommon collaborative is really, and I think we've dedicated ourselves in the last few years to really trying to figure out how do you get those entities in a room to figure out how are we going to collectively bring the resources, the expertise, the energy, and a shared vision to really get something done.
I love it.
In working with young people, I've seen how frustrating it can be when you cannot figure out how to navigate the system because people are territorial, they're in silos, and they're not talking to each other. So one of our efforts is, and the image I have of it is that, and we have a beautiful graphic of this on the website, is that we've got these organizations and entities holding up a world where young people really can play a deep and profound leadership role in shaping the future of our communities. But if we don't do that together, if we don't commit to creating that uncommon collaborative, it's very, very difficult, not only for young people, obviously, but for all of us. So if some of you have heard of the term of collective impact, it's not new, but there is definitely a movement of folks recognizing that we are so much more powerful and have so much more potential in accomplishing something if we get over those barriers and the silos we create and figure out how to work together.
I love that. And I'm on your website now for our listeners, again, who want to support, learn more about Earth Force. It's earthforce.org. On the website, you have Green Schools Connect. Can you explain Green Schools Connect and the green efforts you're making with youth and how that's also moving the needle?
Yes. So Green Schools Connect, if you imagine this world where we're creating this uncommon collaborative, we've been like, wow, one of the places where that uncommon collaborative could so move the needle is around schools. So Green Schools Connect is really an effort to build an uncommon collaborative that supports school districts in becoming more sustainable. And that means our moniker is that we envision all schools as shining examples of sustainability. So not only are schools a centerpiece in our communities and exemplars of that, but we've actually helped schools move the needle not only on purchasing and operations, but on an integration of curriculum around sustainability, a culture that embraces that, and again, young people really helping drive how our schools function at that level. If you think of a school, the heartbeats that are in a school are young people. And their behavior and their commitment to the sustainability and the sustainable practices of their schools are what are going to really, really make those changes. So what Green Schools Connect does is it's a regional effort that brings together 6 to 8 school district teams across, again, that uncommon collaborative, purchasing, operations, curriculum, parents, young people, to really work together with teams from the corporate sector, government agencies, nonprofits, to really think about what are some explicit projects that they can work together on to begin to change how school districts approach sustainability. We've done our first one in Minneapolis, and we'll be rolling out 2 in January and February in Denver and New Jersey.
That's just
it's
wonderful.
A really, I hope I've captured the excitement of getting that cohort of folks in a room to dream about how they can change the policies and practices and really sharing strategies that can transform and save money, of course, for their schools and school districts.
We have about 2 minutes left, Lisa. Can you share what events you have coming up of importance that you'd like our listeners to know about?
So we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and we're very excited about that because as a nonprofit, we've made it. It's also the 25th anniversary of a very wonderful partnership we've had with General Motors, where we work in every community in the U.S. and Canada where they build something and support this collaborative partnership program to engage young people. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the Green Schools Connect events coming up in Denver and New Jersey in early 2015.
That's great. That is just awesome. And for our listeners out there who want to learn more, go to earthforce.org. Lisa, this is the last minute and a half. I'm going to leave it to you for any shameless plugs or anything you want to discuss for our youth out there around the world, not only in the United States. Any pearls of wisdom or any other last thoughts you want to have for our listeners?
Yes. I think I want to say, and this is my voice to adults, that one of the challenges to youth engagement in environmental issues is us, and that we need to really begin to embrace the opportunity and create space for young people to step up because they are energetic, creative, and hardworking, and care deeply about the present and the future. And I hope folks will join me in that.
That's awesome, and I hope they do. And to join Lisa, please go to earthforce.org, earthforce.org. Support, learn more about, and get with their program. Lisa, thank you for improving sustainability through uncommon collaboratives. You are truly living proof that green is good.
Thank you. Take care.